The following contains spoilers for WandaVision, exclusively on Disney Plus. Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. So, if you haven't watched that,
Go watch
it.
Go watch it, come back.
And then come back and watch me. Or if you don't care, then just watch me. Well, guys, welcome back to Reel It In, my podcast / video blogging channel, I guess. So today, on this day of recording, is January 15th, which means that WandaVision, it just dropped 2 episodes, and oof. Oof! We got some...
There's a lot to talk about.
This drinks right here, this is how we feel about it.
In a good way. It's a good, healthy glass.
It's healthy with some raspberries. I do not expect Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen to be funny people.
Paul Bettany is hilarious. He's wonderful. Just in almost every way. That's all I have to say about that. Oh boy.
So, we have some big questions and theories regarding these first 2 episodes and what it's going to set up for the rest of this season, because there has been a glitch in the Matrix, and it's a big one.
So, I mean, right off the bat, we talked about this on the Investors Day podcast, that we were excited for it because we aren't quite sure what to expect, and we're still not quite sure what to expect, given what we have. But it definitely is it seems very like two-faced. And up until I think the most recent debut like trailer, it was very misleading marketing. So it'll be very interesting to see where it goes from here. But so far, it's in a way it's unexpected, but it's also going exactly as I anticipated, and that's great.
I'm glad they didn't decide to just do like a comedy Marvel thing, because
It would have lost me.
Yeah, honestly, the first couple minutes of the first episode, I was a little lost as well. But we have some theories because we saw some interesting things and some thoughts. We don't know the time period this takes in place in the MCU universe.
Real world, no.
Yeah, no, okay. Right now it's 1950s in Wanda's new reality, and she's seeing things. Red and yellow things. Do you know what those are? Those are communist colors. Also, we see a recurring symbol at least 3 times in the past 2 episodes.
No, I'm not sure what it is, but there's like a circle, and then it connects at the bottom, and then there's like an arrow. I originally thought it was a sword, but then I went back and I looked at it, and it's just like an arrow. So I think it's just like a symbol, but you see it a couple times. So at the end of the first episode, where you kind of jump back into reality from their little sitcom world that they're held captive in, I think, personally. And then you see it once there is a glitch in their little universe.
Yeah, and it's on a book. I know we've kind of debunked this. I'm just going to say it anyways, though. The book that a unknown man writes in looks kind of similar to the book used to control Bucky in his brain. It's probably not the same thing, but it just still looked similar to me. So I'm just going to put that out there. It might just be a book, but it looks similar. Also, it's similar because like they're controlling them somehow, and Bucky was controlled via words psychologically.
True.
Okay, so WandaVision is on the surface about Wanda Maximoff and Vision living in I think an alternate reality, right? Or Wanda's reality, and they're trying to pass off as a normal newly married couple in like a suburban neighborhood. Right now it's in the 1950s. It's black and white for the most part, except for little blurs that are red and yellow, as I said earlier.
And then you find out later that it seems that it's like a weird captivity. So I think it was led on to be like an alternate reality. But I have a thought, and I'm excited to see whether I'm right or wrong, that I made a connection to Willy Wonka. And there's the scene with Mike TV where he says, I want to take candy bars and transport them all over the world. And there's like a little platform that he puts his candy on and tries to break those particles up so you can reach into a TV and pull out a candy bar. I'm wondering if this is not a similar kind of principle where they're in captivity, they're in the television, which, at least figuratively speaking, we see that at the end of the episode, of each episode, because they're turning off this very vintage looking television, and it's strangely meta with itself. But I'm with the glitch. The first glitch that you see is in the second episode. There's a sudden banging on their window and they think it's just the tree, but then Wanda goes out later and she finds this little miniature helicopter. It looks like a toy helicopter, but you only see red and yellow, and it's small, like it's toy size, but something like that. It sure sounds, it sounds real, and at some point
that symbol on the nose.
I mean, it's a little on the nose. But you hear it, and it sounds more like a lawnmower. But when you listen to it again, you're like, oh, that's a chopper off in the distance. And then all of a sudden, it hits the window and it stops. So I'm very curious as to where that might lead. Because I definitely feel like there's like a pipeline and there's a glitch, and they're not completely secure in whatever reality or dome, wherever they may be.
Yeah, it's interesting that like the helicopter keeps falling, because either there's a lot of helicopters that just like can't fly right, or it's like on repeat, like the same helicopter keeps falling or crashing. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, is it that happening wherever Wanda is, or is it like a past memory of hers? And then we see later on in the episode, she is listening to a radio, and throughout the radio it goes static, and then you hear someone say, like, Wanda, like, who's doing this to you? And it's a male voice, and I think it sounds a little bit like Steve Rogers, Captain America.
I think it's just a man.
But who would care that much to figure it out that we don't know of? A new person? I don't know. But that was really weird. And then immediately the radio like sparks, like kind of explodes a little bit, and then a woman next to Wanda is holding a glass, which shatters and cuts her hand, and Wanda sees red blood. And then at the end of episode 2, we hear the noise again, the helicopter noise. Wanda and the bang, yeah. That's the helicopter like falling. But then they go outside and they see this manhole cover like starting to move, and out crawls someone dressed in a beekeeping suit, and there's like bees flying around him, and he stands up and he looks directly at them. Do you know what I just thought of, like, kind of interesting? I wonder if Wanda kind of knows, because she saw the beekeeper and she said no, and then the whole thing rewound to before they went outside.
Didn't he ask her a question, though?
The bee guy?
No, Vision.
What question? No, I don't think so. Because I think because Wanda's looking at him, the beekeeper, and the beekeeper's looking back, and Wanda goes, no, like she doesn't want whatever is about to happen. And then like the whole thing just rewinds. So part of me is like, did Wanda rewind that whole thing?
So you mean to assume that maybe this is like all in her head, and maybe she's like wired up or something?
I don't think it's like all in her head per se. I think, I don't know. I just get this weird feeling based on that scene that like somehow she kind of knows what's going on, but that like there's also another outside force that's contributing to this. I don't know who that is, but
Well, maybe she knows, but she doesn't know. You know what I mean?
yeah, like subconsciously.
Yeah, because like so far she's the only one who's like self-aware that some of these things are really weird. Like Vision kind of is there, but he's about as aware as the characters in this alternate reality or whatever sitcom, where they still react, but they're like, it seems to be like almost normal, like they're supposed to do that even if they're in anguish.
Yeah, and part of me is kind of wondering that like, is this Wanda's, like, did she conjure up Vision? Like, is he still gone, after the events of Infinity War, where he unfortunately passed? Like, is this, because Wanda goes into the Soul Stone, and there's a part of me that like, I wonder if in the actual like MCU universe, is it taking place while she's there, and this is what she's doing in her mind, sort of like she's like creating all these things that make her happy, like Vision, obviously, like a perfect life, but then like who would be monitoring her in like the stone, if that's where it might be. It might not be, but do you get what I'm saying?
No, not really. No. I do think it has something to do with the Soul Stone and the Soul Realm, because otherwise, I mean, why would Vision be there? But his stone is there, and then once at the end of episode 2, where things very slowly start to become colorized again, the theme with red and yellow, you only start seeing shades of red and yellow, and his thing, I think, is one of the first things to turn color, and then his face. So I mean, I feel like it still has something to do with the soul realm, but it definitely has something to do with her powers and some kind of containment. Because if you also backtrack to the trailer, there's that big moment where there's just like a wall of just red, but it looks to be the same kind of like pixelation that you see at the end credits of what I think is going to be every episode. And I think it's going to have a lot to do. And you see the helicopter again. So I feel like it's some kind of weird like containment, but it's also using her power some way as a catalyst. And like she's like conscious, but only subconscious.
So like she's the one, like her power is like fueling whatever is going on.
Possibly.
Interesting. Also, we noticed, well, you noticed, I didn't catch it at all, that during the watch commercial, the watch had the Hail Hydra, the Hydra symbol on it. So
A lot going on. And then with the whole communist thing, there's a lot going on.
yeah, I feel like, I know we looked this up and we didn't, it kind of went to like a dead end, but like the second episode kept saying like save the children.
For the children.
Okay, for the children. But like, I feel like during the Cold War, on America's side, I feel like a popular slogan would have been "Save the Children."
Save the Children, if I'm not wrong, was the slogan for the anti-Cold War propaganda. But then in this, they say "for the children," but all like simultaneously and very cult-like. It's really weird.
Yeah, so I think that might be a connection, because you and I are thinking that the Hydra people are back, the Russians, whatever they were in the MCU, and that they're the ones controlling this.
Well, remember, Hydra wasn't just Russian too. It was mostly Germans. Oh, yeah. If you recall back to the original Captain America. But it became like communism, just a regime that just kind of existed everywhere. Some places stronger than others. But I also think think in similar ways that like some movies take place in certain times, it's very important. I think it's very important in that respect, with this kind of almost communist manifesto kind of vibes going on, that that the sitcom rather takes place in the 50s, because that was the time of the Red Scare and all this like this communist witch hunting. So I think it definitely has something to do with that.
But aside from our theories, this was pretty good. Like, the humor was there, at least for me. It appealed to my sense of humor. Yeah, comedic timing. I think Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany did an amazing job. Even these new actors and actresses that I don't really recognize them at all, but I think they did a decent job. Yeah. Wanda and Vision as a couple are like, they're prime. They're like the OTP. They're the prime couple. And it makes me knowing like Vision's eventual death, like it just makes me even sadder for it. More sad. Even if this is her like conjuring up Vision because he's like actually no longer with us, like that just even increases the sadness. But I mean, the humor is there. They marketed it at first as like a sitcom, and they got that down. But I'm glad that the sitcom is not the only thing it is. And I'm also glad they they started to get into the actual concept of it, like in the first episode. Because I think if you didn't do that, like they do at the very end, but like if you didn't do anything at all, you would have lost viewers, I believe.
Well, like I said earlier, if it was all a sitcom, me amongst probably a huge number of people, they would have just lost them, because sitcoms can only go so far, especially with these two characters who are very deserving of a wide range to kind of play with. In my opinion, personally, in the current MCU, I don't think it's Captain Marvel. I think it's Wanda Maximoff is the strongest, is like the top 4 strongest Avengers. So I think it's Thor, very, very, like almost equally lined up with Wanda, and then digresses from there.
I just had a thought. Okay, so at the end of Endgame, when Wanda is facing Thanos and she's like, "You took everything from me," and then she like her. I don't even know who you are. But then her power is like I feel like she got real powerful real quick. Do you think the events that are going to happen in this is like her coming into her powers, which she can later on use in Endgame? Like
this precedes Endgame? Mm-hmm. It's possible. If it didn't seem like there was this outside force, I would have thought originally that like this is kind of what you thought, where this is like what she was experiencing in the soul realm when they were all snapped from existence, because there was the thought that there was going to be something that had to do with that in Endgame. It didn't. It chose time travel instead, which is a little disappointing. But considering there's some outside force, I think this probably has to do after the events of Endgame. Because as we've also seen, especially in Spider-Man Far From Home, that there is a lot that has changed in the world. Everybody blipped back to existence. But then like the people whose identities were originally supposed to be relatively under wraps have now come to light. So I feel like there is a larger force that may come into play that isn't, alien like Thanos.
Well, if it is after Endgame, I guess literally nothing can kill Hydra because they're still here. That I think we can assume, yeah. Well, I mean, each episode's only like 30 minutes, so far. So we've gotten little clues, but nothing really like big yet. So that's kind of all I really have to say.
But it's exciting.
It is exciting. I recommend it especially if you're a fan of Marvel. Is there anything pressing you would like to divulge before we sign off? Nope. All right. Well, the first 2 episodes of WandaVision has been reeled in. This might be our new like weekly thing because nothing's really coming out. Maybe. All right. Well, thank you for joining. I'll see you guys next week.